Hey there, and welcome to the A.D.K Rock and Metal channel. I, of course, am Dave. There's no Andy or Kirk with me today. They're off doing other things for the channel. But today I am joined by the wonderful Anna Kjellberg from the wonderful Drain STH. I hope I got your surname correct.
Yes, you did. I went by A.D.K all those years because, most English-speaking people could not get it correct. So that was pretty good. I'm impressed.
Thank you. I do try. Thank you for coming on the channel. It's great to have you on. It's a Drain. I'm going to refer to Drain as Drain rather than Drain STH because I can't keep saying STH all day. It just makes my life a little easier. But Drain is one of those bands that, through my formative late teenage, early 20s, that key period of time when you're an adult, you're over 18, you're moving out on your own, you're buying all your own music. Drain was a band that I was really into. 94, 95 was my big years for kind of going to live shows, etc. And Drain was one of the bands that I got the opportunity to catch in London. So you're a big part of my growing up in my music scene. There you go.
Very cool.
So I've got a load of questions, so I'm glad you've been able to come on the channel to chat about the band. I want to talk a little bit. I'm going to go right back to the beginning of the band, and I'm actually going to go a little bit before the band. So I want to talk about the band that became Drain, i.e. 1991 Ragdoll.
Yes.
So that was everyone with the exception of, I believe, Maria wasn't in the band for when it was Ragdoll originally. So
we went back even before that. We had a band called Aphrodite.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, Martina and Flavia, drums and guitar, they were in this band Aphrodite in the 80s, and I joined them in 89 already. And so we did another year or so touring with Aphrodite in Sweden.
Okay.
And then that band broke up, and the three of us continued, and we found this other singer called Annie and started Ragdoll, and did that for how long that was, a year, 2 years, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, the singer disappeared, and we reformed, again, and found Maria and became Drain.
Now, were any of the sort of songs that you were playing in Ragdoll, was it similar to what became Drain? Were any of the Drain songs from Ragdoll's time, or was it completely brand new?
It was pretty different. Ragdoll was more, kind of more like old school rock and roll. It had a little funkier type elements, actually, believe it or not. And it was also, because that fitted the singer we had at the time. She had that kind of voice and that kind of output. So it was quite different. And none of those songs made it forward to Drain.
Right.
No.
Because I know with Maria, when she came in, because Maria previously had been also guitarist in a previous band. So when she joined, was there any kind of element of her coming in with ideas riff-wise, writing-wise, or did she come in purely from a vocal
she came in purely from the vocal side. I mean, she didn't play much guitar during songwriting with us.
Okay.
But I mean, she had that in her, obviously, and it makes a difference, I think, when a singer also plays an instrument. Because I think you maybe think a little bit different about music and how music works and how you write songs and everything. So, but no, she didn't really pick up the guitar when we were writing.
Okay. Because I'm going to ask a question that I've got to get out of the way because it's the one that always comes up when we talk about Drain. What was it like doing interviews back in the day and people coming up to you going, "You sound like a female version of Alice in Chains"?
Yeah, we did hear that a lot.
Yeah.
and I mean, I'm not going to deny, obviously, there was an influence from Alice in Chains, absolutely. But, we all grew up with all kinds of different stuff, like Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, even things like Faith No More and Tool, and there was also Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue. I mean, all of that stuff was in what we listened to growing up. And I mean, I even went crazier when I was like a teenager. It was more like The Damned and the Sisters of Mercy and that kind of thing. So that's what we kind of came from, and all of us listened to quite different types of music, to be honest. But I guess me and Martina are the most guilty of the Alice in Chains influence because we definitely really liked Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
But I think the camp was kind of divided on that, because when I actually went back a little bit here for this interview and looked at like old reviews and interviews we did and whatever, and some people were really hung up on this Alice in Chains thing, and others didn't see it at all the same way. It was not. I mean, yeah, there was an influence, but not as much as some others wanted to make it.
No, we had when I first introduced the band to Andy and Kirk on the channel, I played them I Don't Mind.
Yeah,
so we reviewed that, and straight away, as soon as he said Alice in Chains, I was like, oh, here we go again. You can't. Why does everyone have to do this?
Yeah.
But you go backwards, and when you listen back through, and then you listen to Alice in Chains, and you go, well, you can clearly hear Black Sabbath in Alice in Chains if you want.
Absolutely.
It depends on your musical palette. If you've got a wide enough palette, you can hear every other band in there somewhere.
That's what I'm thinking too, and I think what mainly was coming through for us was the vocal melodies, or even more so the vocal harmonies. I think that was kind of borrowed from the whole Alice in Chains thing, but musically and instrumentally, I don't think there is a lot of similarities, other from a few sections here and there, but in general, I think it's the vocals that does it.
I think it was only because it was only you and Alice in Chains that were doing that kind of harmonizing vocals. So
yeah,
a few of the other kind of what you would class as the bands that were getting the mainstream coverage that were actually doing those style of harmonizations with multi-parts and stuff, which sounded amazing. And they sound so fresh still today. But yeah, I just think that a lot of people they didn't know where to position you. They listened to it and went,
no, but
the other option I've heard Alice in Chains, so it must be that.
We were such a mystery in so many ways. We were also 4 females, and we were from Sweden, and we were way too heavy for being females. When we released the album in the US, we had no photos of the band and we didn't release any press pictures for 4 months. So nobody knew. And at that time, we sounded like Black Sabbath, Metallica, in the reviews. Of course, the whole Seattle scene was brought up, and Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, all that. And then the press pictures came out, and then all of a sudden, we sounded like L7 and Hole, and even Hearts. And you go like, what the fuck? Even Doro Pesh, and you go like, okay, so what is this? So I think the idea of what you sound like is a little bit, not so sure always.
Yeah,
I thought that was very interesting. When they thought we were guys, we sounded like other guy bands. And then when they found out we were women, we sounded like other female bands.
Yes.
How did that happen?
It is very interesting doing the comparison and genres and trying to work out where people fit, because whenever we do a review, you always automatically go, I'm getting a hint of a Metallica style riff in there, and you then do start comparing, and we do the same. I guess we're guilty of it a little bit on the channel with the real strong female aggressive vocalists, and we almost always compare them to the vocalist Tatiana from Ginger because of her style, and it almost becomes the go-to as a comparison because we don't have a wide enough palette. And I find that a lot of people with Drain do exactly the same. If they don't have a big enough palette, they just compare it to Alice in Chains.
I see that, and it is a fact that there isn't a lot of women in this type of music. So, but then again, I don't really understand why you have to compare women to other women. Honestly, also we always got the question like, if we grew up with the Runaways and all that, and it's like, no, I never listened to the Runaways. My guitar player did. Flavia loved them. I didn't like them at all. Stupid. And I didn't listen to Girls' School or L7 or Hole or any of that either. You don't have to do that. Just because you're a woman, you don't have to listen to other female bands. You don't have to sound like other female bands. Always these comments also from people like, oh, I love girl bands. That's stupid. That's like saying, oh, I love bands with red pants. You know what I mean? It's like, what does it sound like? They don't all sound the same.
That's true.
but I guess a lot of times they mean that they think it's really cool that there is a female band and they support that, But it does come off kind of corny.
I did skip one part of the question of the origins of the band, which is, I know that the band, it stands for Drain STH, which is Stockholm.
Yeah.
Although there's some people say it means straight to hell, which is
we made up a lot of
just whatever.
Yeah, in every interview we made up something new. Straight to hell was very popular. It was also like Satan's tree climbing hippies and all kinds of stuff. This STH thing was kind of forced upon us because there was another band in the US called Drain, and we had zero time to come up with either a new band name for the US, and because we were already on tour in Europe, the album was already out. We didn't want to have another name in the US, so this was just a quick solution. Yeah.
But where did the original name Drain though? So because when you were sitting there picking names out for the band and coming up, you've been Ragdolls, you've decided to do a new band, Maria's come in, you've gone, what are we going to call ourselves, what's this band, and you've decided on Drain. Where did that come from? Were there any other options that you were thinking of?
No, nothing that really stuck with us. I think Drain was the first name that we all kind of liked. And obviously we don't mean drain as in the sink. It's more like, draining a person of emotions, of thoughts, of blood, whatever you want. It's a dark interpretation of the word drain. So it kind of, we liked it. We liked the sound of it, and it kind of went with our lyrics and our overall style, I think.
I'm going to ask about a show that you played back in the UK. Now this is going to be right back in '94, I guess, somewhere around there.
Now, 95, I would think.
Maybe 95, because I believe it was actually probably even before horror wrestling had actually properly come out.
So that would be 95.
There would have been 95, because I can't remember too much about what it was, but for whatever reason, we were one of the first. Me and some friends had come to see the show at the Water Rats in London. Tiny little venue. The stage was about that high off the ground, I remember, with a little red curtain that goes around it. And the crowd, there was no barriers, there was no security. It was literally you, the band, and the fans were there on the floor. And as we came through, they gave us this little plastic carrier bag, and it had the 7-inch I Don't Mind single on record.
Yeah.
We had a tape for a band called Scrap Iron Scientists. I think we were on support.
I remember that.
They were brutal. I just remember them being absolutely brutal. I can't remember who else. There was one other band on the bill that night. But how did that come about? Because obviously you went off and did a big load of tours. But what about this small little London show? How did that happen?
No idea. I don't remember. I would assume that it was some kind of showcase for, the British label people and, that kind of thing. Because that was way before we started actually touring. In outside of Sweden, that is. So I guess it must have been something like that. We probably had, I don't even remember everybody's name, but I do remember what they looked like, the label people we had at the time in England. So I think that was the thing.
I can't even remember how we found out about it, but for some reason, it might have been in the back of a magazine or some sort of promo or that we just turned up for. But it was an amazing show. I do remember that one.
Well, cool, thank you. And I think we did a lot of press at that time too, because we were building up to come over on a real tour later on in '96.
Okay.
So this was probably just like warming up England a little bit.
So Horror Wrestling, the album. This is such a dark, and I use the word creepy album, but there's something very insidious about this album, which I love. I mean, when you songs like Crack the Liar, Smile and Serve the Shame are probably your most upbeat songs on there.
Yeah.
Stench is just amazing. Love Stench. And there's so many elements of doom in that album as well. So you can hear the elements of things like Black Sabbath riffs and stuff like that coming through in there. I'm really intrigued about the writing process of when you went in there. Was there like a preconception of what sort of style you were going for, what mood you were trying to set on the album? Was this just naturally just what came out the pores?
Yes, naturally just what came out of us. And you might think that we were the most depressed people on the planet. We were absolutely not. But I think what came out of us, like musically, both the instrumental parts that are pretty doomy as well, and of course the melodies, but also the lyrics. I think that is what we kind of chose to write about. Like, we didn't feel it necessary to write about the happy stuff. We were extremely happy at the same time, but then we went out partying and had a good time instead, and we didn't feel like we needed to write about that. So all this darkness is kind of what came out of us as artists, I guess.
Okay. And when you were writing as a band, was it a case that was this an all together? Because as a songwriter and musician myself, I'm always intrigued about how musicians work.
Yeah,
because I know a lot of people get together, and some people get together in a room with one riff, and they'll spend an hour writing a song. Yeah. Other people like to present a whole song to a band, and they go, "This is a song I've written. Let's work on it, and then fine tune it and find your own parts." What was the songwriting process for Drain?
Well, it did differ a little bit from song to song, but in general, I would say we were pretty early on with using computers, and we were recording on Cubase, like doing demos in that way. And so usually it was like Flavia that came up with riffs and gave them to me, who kind of, together with Martina, programmed drums and kind of stitched it together to basic instrumental songs, like a basic frame. And then Martina and Maria went on their own to work on melodies and some lyrics. So we kind of went back and forth. We usually didn't work as all four of us at the same time. We were like divided in groups of two, basically, and like kind of switching it around that way. So usually that is what happened. But I mean, Crack the Liar Smile, I wrote really, really, really an old school way of writing a song. I had this little tiny tape recorder, right. Press rec, you know what I mean? Yeah. And played the guitar riff on an acoustic guitar, put that cassette in the stereo, put a new cassette in the little recorder, and then sang and did the vocals. And then I presented that. That was basically not the lyrics, but the rest of the song was presented as pretty much finished song. And Maria did like a similar thing with Serve the Shame.
Right.
That came from her. So, but yeah, all the other songs basically was written this way. And then, of course, a lot of things happen when you're in the studio. When you actually record the album, you kind of twist and turn with things, and you come up with new parts, and you change things around and, add stuff that wasn't there from the beginning. But we were pretty good at really working on the demo stage of the songs, and to have them as finished as possible when we went into the studio.
So one of the ones I wanted to then talk about was the lack of actual music videos for the band, which I find quite strange, because there was only really two videos you did, which was Crack the Liars and I Don't Mind.
Yep.
We didn't really get any videos on Freaks of Nature. So was this something that the band were not too worried about the videos, or was this more a case of labels going, we're not pushing you, we just want to push you live, rather than we don't see any value in videos?
It was more like that. We didn't have a problem with making videos at all. It was different times. Sometimes I'm thinking, like, what if that would have happened today, when everybody have videos and cameras and phones and stuff with you all the time? We were a very visual band in many ways, and it would have been so much more out there, I think. Nowadays bands make videos on their own with their fucking cell phones on a truck stop. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so different. But no, I don't really know. I don't have a good answer to why we didn't make more videos. I wish we had. I think when it came to the second album, and I Don't Mind, we really blew the video budget on that one video also. that might have been a part of the problem.
Money is always a problem. Okay, so Freaks of Nature, as far as listening, I was listening back through the album the other day, because horror wrestling was always the one that I kind of first got into. And Freaks of Nature almost came out without any fanfare here in the UK. We didn't even know it came out until a long time afterwards. It was actually a friend of mine in America who said, I've been listening to the new Drain STH album. I'm like, Drain STH is... So hang on, is that Drain still? What is it? And they're like, oh, no, it's the same band. I'm like, oh, okay. oh, I had this album for ages, and so they kind of pointed me in the right direction, because there was no real push of the album over in the UK. But when I listen to that album now, this is a much more commercially, or it sounds much more commercial compared to Horror Wrestling. Horror Wrestling felt like it was you guys all in the studio just writing and coming from you.
Yeah.
Freaks of Nature sounds like a lot of other people were involved in that writing and were giving direction. It doesn't feel like it's as personal as an album. It's very much more commercially driven, with trying to make you sound more acceptable. It's that's how when I listen to it. What was the involvement of other people in that particular album?
Well, I mean, I think always for any band, when you make your debut album, you've had a lot of time, I think, to write those songs, and it's coming really from your heart in a different way. I think that's true. And then when the second album is about to be released, you have first of all, you have way less time. We spent so much time on the road for Horror Wrestling. Then all of a sudden they go like, hey, you need to record a second album. We're like, we don't have any songs. When would have been, able to record those? So, we had to write that album pretty quick. And I think also our own influences have changed. Times change. You tour a lot. You see a lot of other bands. You hear new music. We were spending a lot of time in America, and the scene there was quite different from the scene here. You come across a lot of new stuff you hadn't heard before. And, at this time, this whole thing with using electronics and samples and loops came in, and we thought that was super cool. So we wanted to use that ourselves in our songs. And, you change a little bit, I think, over the years. So I still think, it definitely came from us. And if you listen to most of the riffs and the vocal melodies, the lyrics and everything, it's absolutely in the same vein as Horror Wrestling. But you're right, the sound is more polished. That's what we wanted to go for, but we also had a different producer on that album. And we did write songs with two other really good old friends in the music industry. One is Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath. It started out with him actually asking if we wanted to participate on his solo album that he was working on. We talked about that during Ozfest in '97. And then his project kind of took a longer time. Our recordings came up first. And so we asked him, like, why don't you write a song with us for our album instead? And he's like, sure, that's fun. Let's do that. So that happened. And that is a song called Black.
It's a great song.
A suitable name. And you can definitely hear Tony in that song. And then also our old friend Max Martin, or Martin as we know him, he at that time had a lot of success, as we all know, with Britney Spears and Backstreet Boys and all that. We ran into him in a bar here in Stockholm one night, had a couple of beers, and we've known him for, since way back, his huge success. And same kind of thing there. He's like, hey, can I write a song for you guys? Like, when you're going to make this new album, it would be so much fun to write rock again. And we're like, absolutely, fucking love you. Let's do it. And then turned into 2 songs. And he produced one of them. But other than that, we had the same producer doing all the other songs.
Okay. So I have to ask about Simon Says as a song. It is the one song on the album that kind of doesn't necessarily. There's elements that sound like Drain, but it's the fact you bring the kind of the
rap thing,
the rap section in it, which kind of was very. I guess you could then say was that a commercial decision, because obviously at the time of it coming out, new metal is still very big at that point. It hasn't had its. You're going into second wave of new metal at this point. You haven't had the third wave, which killed new metal, but you've also got metalcore is about to kind of kick off in a big way. You've got melodic death metal is kicking off over in Europe. So there's a whole big shift. So the grunge sound is pretty much died off completely by the time as far as commerciality. So this felt like almost a calculated move to kind of go, could we dip our toe into some of the new metal fans?
Yeah, well, I would say that's probably a Max Martin calculation. He's the one that knows about those things more than we did. we were a bit wary about this rap thing. I mean, we loved the sound of it and we loved the way the song came out. But of course, we realized it was going to be a bit problematic live. We can't bring a rapper on the road to sing those lines and then do what? You know what I mean? Didn't really make any sense. And it's not like we could deliver that attitude and that rap in that way. So, of course, that was on tape. That was kind of a weird thing to make that work live. On the other hand, people loved that song, It became huge on its own, and people loved it, and the crowd was singing that part. So it kind of solved itself that way. It did really good on radio over in the US, and it's an amazingly great song. But it was kind of tricky with rap. It was.
One of the things I really liked about Drain was the fact that it was the band was never about being over sexualization of the image of the band. You came out and you're in combat trousers, t-shirts. You went out and you just performed your music. It wasn't about trying to, like, where there are bands nowadays, whether it's things like Butcher Babies and stuff like that, or Pretty Reckless, which come out and they're in stilettos, and it's become less about the music, and there's an over sexualization to try and sell music. But with Drain, it was never that way. Now, was that all about in your days? You were like, this is what's comfortable. We're not going down that route. We just want to be us on stage.
Exactly. We were never into that whole leather corset, stiletto, fishnets, hot pants kind of thing, which I think, it's the easy way out for a lot of women to do that, because it's always, what should I say, appreciated. And kind of also maybe expected. So it's very easy to fall into that kind of trap, I think. And we just did not want to go there. We were not comfortable with that. And we also we just wanted to be who we are. We didn't want to do that whole contrived thing just to sell records. Hindsight, would I today say, like, yes, fuck it, put on the fucking thing, sell records? Maybe we should have, because, the whole thing with Adidas pants and t-shirts, yeah, I don't know. But that was us at the time.
Yeah.
And that's what we were comfortable in. And I think, like, on the second album, we kind of found a little bit different. We weren't so combat-y boot at that time. It was a little bit sleeker black appearance.
Because I noticed, obviously, on the Freaks of Nature album, they had you guys all ladies on the front cover in the cocktail dress type. Was that something that you were told about, or was this the record label said, we want to feminize you more because you keep going out in combats and stuff? We want to make you be a bit more feminine for the album cover?
Kind of both yes and no. I mean, of course, there was maybe some hope from their side that we would ride a little bit on our femininity and all that, and this was our take on it. And I wouldn't call that cocktail dresses. I mean, I think we look like some kind of pagan ritual. I mean, we stepped in these kind of long dresses, and I think it's a beautiful picture. We look beautiful, but we're not sexy in that sense. We don't play on sex at all. It's not that. I mean, I think it's still very dark. And yeah, a pagan ritual, it kind of looks like. We didn't really have that in mind at the time, that it was going to portray that, but it came out. And another thing, the fire in the background was real. Everybody think it's CGI fucking, and afterwards. No, it was real. Our backs were burning. We had like blisters after that photo shoot.
Oh dear. You mentioned, obviously, things like "Crack the Liar Smile" was you wrote that particular one. So I'm wondering, is that why? Because when I watched you live, when I was at the Water Rat show, also on a lot of videos, when you're playing bass, you mouth a lot of the lyrics to the audience. Is that something you were aware that you did beforehand, or you thought, do you know what, I'm going to engage with the audience and sing along with them as I'm playing, or was that just something you just do subconsciously and as you're playing?
Subconsciously. I mean, I did a lot of weird faces and stuff. Some fans they came up with, they called me the evil bass face because I always looked pissed off and angry, and I was like, screaming at people. I don't know. It was just in the heat of the moment, and like a lot of energy, and they are singing to me, I'm singing to them. It was not really something I thought much about. I've seen afterwards on video recordings. I'm like, what am I doing?
I loved it because I loved the fact that you were doing that, because when I do watch bands and we watch so many live performances, and you see guitarists or bass players that look very much introverted, so they're too busy thinking about what they're doing. And they're not really looking out. They're not looking at the crowd. They're not engaging with the crowd. It's very boring to watch. Whereas you never had that watching you.
No. I was all about focusing on the crowd. That's what I love being on stage in general. Is that give and take of energy. You get so much from the crowd, and you just give it right back.
So I have to get up to, obviously, the band sort of decided to part ways. I have to ask about that. So you've been, because you had quite a lot of success with going out on tours. You've done quite a lot of shows with Sabbath, and you've got out and done quite a lot. So what was the kind of deciding factor of the band? Was there no kind of thought of like, we can keep going and let's work on a new album and see what happens? Or was it just a case of we've run as far as we can with this band?
No. What happened really was that, Maria and Tony became a couple. They met at work, you could say, because we were touring quite a bit. I mean, already back in '97, and then we wrote that song, etc., with Tony in '98, and in '99 we did another Ozfest, and then we toured in the States with Black Sabbath and Godsmack, and then we took that tour to Europe. So I mean, there was many months of touring together. And so Maria and Tony became a couple, and at this time, it was kind of the end, or not really. I wouldn't say it was the end of the album cycle, because we had only released first I Don't Mind, but then also Simon Says was released as a single in the States, and it did pretty good, but. There was a lot of circumstances, I think, that made things a little tricky at the time, because we thought that the label had spent too much time and money on the I Don't Mind single. We thought that Simon Says was going to do better. But by the time that came out, we had burnt all the radio support and all the tour support. And it became a little bit of a struggle and a little bit fighting with the label, etc. Simon Says did really good on radio, kind of on its own, because they didn't push it as much as they should have. So there was a few things like that, and of course we were also all kind of burnt out. We had been touring like crazy for like 3 years, and Maria felt like she wanted to step back and move to England with Tony, and she wanted to leave the band. She didn't want to be like grinding on the road anymore the way we did. And for the rest of us, it was like somebody pulled the rug under our feet, of course. We didn't know really what to do. And this happened like, I think, early fall of '99.
Right.
But we were booked like all through the years. So we just finished up all the touring and everything. We did the last show at the NEC Arena in Birmingham.
Okay.
And we knew it when we went up on stage that this was going to be our last show. We hadn't been telling a lot of people, more like the need to know people knew about it, but we didn't go out officially with it at all until after the fact. So at first, then me and Martina and Flavia, we were considering to find another singer and try to continue, which, it's always hard to replace the voice in a band.
Yeah,
I think. It's always difficult. The rest of us are kind of, you just switch us out. but the voice and the singer and the front person and everything, I mean, it's difficult. It's doable, but it's difficult. So we were considering that and trying to look at some options and whatever. And then Flavia, who also got married at that time and everything, she's like, you know what? I think I'm going to step down too, and maybe do something else musically and whatever, leaving me and Martina going like, now what? This was not supposed to happen like this. You know, we were going to continue, going to become the biggest band on the planet. What happened? So yeah, that's what happened.
Because then I know that for each of you, you've gone off and done other musical projects. Now, was this a case of? Well, what I'm aware of is that none of you tried to kind of use Drain as a springboard to say, "Look, I was in Drain, so give me a chance." You all kind of went off and did your own projects with your own focuses. But was there a chance that you could have taken these projects further, or was there just this thing in the back of your head that you were so close to achieving what you wanted that you had to go out and do another band?
Yeah, for me, Martina, it was like that, definitely. So we in 2000 there we said, you know what, we're gonna go to LA and see what happens. Because by then we've been touring so much in the States. We had so many friends and, you know, industry people that we knew well, and both, you know, on the label management side and also on the bands. So we went to Los Angeles and we started a new project called Superfix. And we were, you know, we recruited some members from an LA band called I can't remember right now. And I thought about this before we called. Anyway, doesn't matter. So 2 guys on guitar and drums, and then me and Martina. And Martina was going to sing in this project. So we did that, and we had management and stuff, and we did showcases, and we honestly, we did think we could ride on the Drain fame a little bit, but that turned out to be harder than we thought. I mean, it's LA, it's Hollywood, it's a billion bands, it's, you know what I mean? It's like, it's huge competition for anything. And we got some offers, but it was nothing that really felt right. So, you know, eventually we called it quits. With that, I think we gave it about 2 years. And then I got a call from a New York band called Hansel and Gretel.
Okay.
It's like an industrial metal type band. So I joined them for a couple of years as a touring bass player, and I also played on their upcoming record. That was a lot of fun. It was great. It was very different from, you know, the Drain thing or whatever. It's very, very different to be a hired gun too, I realized. Yeah. You know, it's one thing to have kind of your own band. It's like us against the world, and being a hired gun, it's like you kind of show up and do what you're told. Now, this was an amazingly fun band. I had a great time with them. We did some really fun touring. We were up with Ministry, for example, and a lot of other bands. And then after that, if I'm gonna continue my own little career in the States. In 2006, I got a call from Al Jorgensen, Ministry, because we had toured with Ministry both with Drain and then later with Hansel and Gretel, so we were really good friends. And he was putting together his old side project called Revolting Cocks. That had been like sleeping for like 13 years at that time. So he called me and he said, "So Anna, you want to be the revolting cunt this summer?" And I said, like, hell yeah, how could I say no to that? So yeah, that was an experience. Revolting Cocks opened for Ministry for 3 months. And, you know, we were down in El Paso, Texas, rehearsing. And, you know, it was a lot of fun. Joey Jordison was playing drums in Ministry on that tour. And, you know, it was like, you know, it's a bunch of friends having crazy times. So I did that. And then and that was just for that tour. You know, it was not really meant to be a project that was going to continue. After that, I went back to LA, and my husband that I had found in LA, he was in a band called Opiate for the Masses, LA-based band. And all of a sudden, they needed a new bass player. And the other guys in the band were like, "Hey, let's ask Anna. She's already in the family anyway. So let's do it." And so, yeah, that's what happened. So I played with them for a couple of years too. We made a record and we did some touring, went out with Filter, for example, and did some stuff. So yeah, it kept going. It's been a lot of shows in the States.
A lot of shows.
A lot.
I mean, so from a point of playing yourself now, so how active do you, because obviously there is a certain point where you kind of go, do you know what, even for me, I'm in my mid-40s and I've played in bands through the years, and now I'm still in another band, and I'm like, I don't want to be playing out every show under the sun. I'm playing every gig on every night. I just want to take a bit of time, put a few songs out there, play some shows occasionally, put my feet up, and just step back from it all. Because I'm not going to, at 45, I doubt I'm ever going to be the next big thing in the next big band.
Right.
But
here comes
how about yourself? So, is it you in the same sort of boat where you like just do it for the love of it now? And
no, I actually don't have anything going on now. It's kind of what you say. It's like you've done it all, kind of thing. You did all this touring and everything, and been around the world. And I feel like if I don't have a tour bus, I don't want to do it. You know, well, you get kind of spoiled, I guess, with the success that we had. And as you said too, like being the next big thing, that's like winning the lottery. It's a lot of hard work, and to put a new band together, and everything that it takes to even make a first record, and then see what happens with that. It's so much time, and there's so much effort going into it, and the likeliness of it actually happening in a big way is slim. So I don't know. I focused on doing other things that makes me happy. I definitely miss this whole time period of touring around the world and playing in bands and doing this whole thing. I miss it, but it was great. I had it. I was a part of it, and it's never coming back.
Right.
It's just never coming back. Time changed. It's a whole different thing with, releasing music and touring and everything. It's just very different from what it was. And I think that I'm just going to leave it there with what I experienced and what I had then, instead of just riding a dead horse. You know what I mean?
There's no money in music anymore. So it's everyone just puts it on streaming platforms and gives their products away for free nowadays. So it's a very, very weird world, the music industry.
It's very different. And again, it's like a part of me belongs to that universe. It's like I always say that when all these successful bands come, friends that we've been touring with, friends that I've had for 25 years from these days, from Ozfest, whatever, they come through Stockholm. I go to the show, of course, we hang out. It's like no time has passed. We are family. And it's like I'm hanging out with the people that are from my planet, and we speak the same language. And you know what I mean? It is like that. But at the same time, to struggle with it that way again. And the other thing is, like I said, I am not super happy being that hired gun person. Like I've done that for all those years in Los Angeles, and it was definitely good times. I'm not saying that. I had great times, and it was a lot of fun, but it's not really my thing. I definitely want to have a band.
Yeah.
That is not, shouldn't say my band, because that sounds like I'm the band leader or whatever. It's not what I mean. But what we did with Drain.
Yeah.
That's when I'm the most happy.
Was there, last question I have for you was, when, after Freaks of Nature, were there any songs that you guys had written, ladies had written, that you had knocking around that would have been maybe for a future album, or didn't make it onto Freaks of Nature, that were almost finished? Was there any songs that were never ever released that you'd almost finished?
No.
Damn it.
Right. No, because that wasn't really the way we wrote. I mean, there was probably some ideas sitting around on some hard drive somewhere, but nothing that had the shape of a song. And when we were touring, and we were crazy touring, and we did not have the energy and the time really to write songs at the same time. We were not sitting in the back lounge with a little computer rig writing songs. Some bands do that, and fucking all credit to them, because that's difficult to have that focus, inspiration, and be able to do that, because it's so much going on when you're on the road, and it's not just a performance, it's interviews, and it's traveling, and it's this and that, and going to radio stations. It's like there's not a lot of time to be creative, I think. At least not for us.
Not for you. Well, that was my last question for this evening. All I can say is it's just been absolutely amazing to have you to chat on the channel. Obviously, love Drain. So, it's just been amazing for you to take me through that little journey. And obviously, all the your future bits that you've done since leaving Drain. Some of those I didn't know about. So, always really good to hear about those.
You should dive into it. You should check it out.
I will definitely do that. But thank you very much for joining me on the channel today.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. It was great fun.
Thank you very much.